You're tuned into the Endless Honeymoon podcast. Very, I would say, an unbelievably special edition. We have a special guest with a special connection to you. It's the legend himself, Kevin Smith. Kevin, how are you?
So damn good. What is our connection, Natasha?
Well, I moved to New York, and the first job I had in entertainment, I was an extra all day in Chasing Amy.
What?
And I wanted to stand out so badly. You can actually see me. I'm in a dance scene. I was in like 3 or 4 scenes, but I wore this like zebra striped kerchief.
Were you at Meow Mix?
Yes, I was there, the lesbian bar. And then I was the whole day like watching you direct, and it was really awesome. And it was my first. I landed in New York and did that, and so you've always been in my mind as like my first. I was an extra.
That's so.
You were quite an extra.
It's no doubt. It's so wild because we met at the Chelsea thing years ago, but you've never mentioned that. Like that's crazy.
I know.
Number one,
I was a little embarrassed.
Don't be embarrassed of that. Number one, you witnessed rarefied breathing, man, because that Kevin Smith just like doesn't even exist anymore. So I'm always curious, what was he like? I remember him as being so earnest and serious about fucking making pretend.
I remember you were dating Joey. And you guys had some intimate moments that I thought were I was like, oh, you can just kind of like kiss on set. Okay. But like but you were very, I just really liked how you talked to everyone. You weren't a tyrant. You were like really nice to the extras. Of course, you always remember that when you're an extra.
You're a huge tyrant now because that Kevin Smith doesn't exist anymore.
Such an asshole after that movie. I learned on that movie. When you're nice to the extras,
yeah, don't be nice.
Nothing good comes from it. So from that moment forward, I'm now like super beyond fucking chill to the point where it's like, does he have a pulse? So I'm always curious what the younger version of me was like, because I remember being so sincere, so earnest, and like here, like you look at Clerks, which is inarguably a very funny movie, and the guy who made it the whole time was. Like he saw himself as more of a filmmaker than a comic. And it took me probably about 10 years into my career to realize like, oh, you're a fucking comedian. That's all you are. Like you've made a film or two, but like at the end of the day, like you reach for the lowest hanging fruit and try to make people fucking laugh on a regular basis. And there was a point in my career where people like, he's going to be a thing. There was an article, I forget where it was, maybe New York Magazine, it was called like The Next Scorsese, and they had all these fucking famous film critics pick what filmmaker would be the next Scorsese, and some people picked like Wes Anderson, some people picked did they pick Eddie Burns? No.
McG had to be in there.
Oddly enough, no. And then I was one. Andrew Sarris picked me to be like the next Scorsese, which was the farthest thing from the fucking truth. So there was a time in my career where like I was considered like a classy filmmaker, and more importantly, I considered myself a classy filmmaker. And then somewhere along the way, probably after Dogma, probably by Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I learned to not take it all so very seriously. Now, if you chart the growth or lack of in my films, most people would be like, well, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is when the movie starts sucking or something like that. But for me, that's when the job starts getting fun. That's when I realized, oh my God, like I'm literally paid to make pretend for a living. This is fucking fantastic. Why are you so serious about yourself? Like the first year of my career, I was like a flavor of the month and shit like that. And that lasted for like a year long. And because it said something about being Gen X at the right moment, at the right time, then they were like, you're a fucking spokesman for Gen X. And I wasn't prepared for any of that shit. I didn't know how to deal with it. So I just approached it very earnestly. Like I never thought of myself as a filmmaker as much as a writer who just happened to direct his own films. And it took me a while, like from 94 till by the time I got to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, to loosen my sphincter, in my estimation. So it's lovely to hear that on Chasing Amy that I was talking to the extras and I was still like a nice guy and I wasn't taking it all so seriously.
Well, you are an auteur. I mean, those aren't that common. Someone who writes, directs.
I mean, nowadays,
single vision.
Nowadays, that's, as common as fucking herpes. Like turn on Netflix and every streaming series is auteur driven. It's a writer who creates the whole thing, and then they have multiple writers because it's like a series, and then they wind up directing as well. Like it used to be, something that very few people tried because filmmaking, like hockey, is just a very expensive fucking sport, right? Like if you want to play some pickup basketball or baseball, don't require much. It's very inexpensive. If you want to play hockey, it's like all that equipment, all that fucking ice time, like all that shit's expensive. So filmmaking used to be that as well. But now, like we live in the era of, if you've got one of these, you've got a fucking studio and stuff. Sean Baker proved that when he made Tangerine. So it feels like anybody could and is an auteur. I mean, think about it. All those cats on TikTok, little auteurs, man, making their own movies, conceiving their own visions, and then executing or elevating with a visual medium. So
I think empty auteurs.
The empty auteur, yeah. And it's nice that auteurs finally have symmetrical features. Because for the whole 70s, it was a lot of real uggos, but now they look like Prince Charming.
Oddly perfect.
Okay, I don't want to get us away from... Yeah.
Wait, I want to ask one more question.
Oh, yes, please.
About what you're saying.
Wait, I want to say something about extras, though, because I want Kevin to chime in on it when you're done.
Okay, well, my question to you, Kevin, is what was the breaking point for you? Because you seem to be like, saying you have this second self, this rebirth. Like, what was your breaking point of not taking yourself seriously?
What a great question.
Or so serious.
When I became a stoner, that's when I learned to not take myself seriously. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean when you became a stoner? Like, fucking those movies weren't made by a stoner? No, I didn't start smoking weed until I met Seth Rogen on Zach and Miri Mega Pornos. That was 2008. So that'd be 14 years into my career. I'd smoked weed like in high school a few times and shit, and then after high school, but it wasn't a big part of my life. Suddenly I met a functioning stoner, and he was like, there's lots of us, man. We smoke weed and we get shit done. And I was like, get out of here. Because the stereotype I grew up with as an 80s kid was just like, the next step is cocaine, then heroin, then cock in your mouth, and then it's all done and stuff. So
I did it the opposite. I went cock first.
Well, we're from Jersey, so we do everything backwards.
Yeah. Well, I'm from California, so you're born with a silver cock in your mouth.
Right in your mouth. What is that?
What's your relationship?
Me and Ralph Garman did a podcast called Hollywood Babylon. We've been doing it for years and shit. But one of our favorite sayings from like the beginning, this is going back to like 2008, 2009 when we first started. Like I was podcasting in like 2007. By the time I did Babylon, it's 2009. And it was always a public podcast. First in my little Smod Castle Theater on Santa Monica Boulevard. And then we took it to like the Lovitz up on, fucking City Walk. And
the Lovitz.
Remember the Lovitz? And then we were at the Improv forever. So much so they put our picture on the wall. Like it was nuts, and it was quite an honor. But during the first early years of the show, we would always say, welcome to Los Angeles, put a dick in your mouth. And it went saying like born with a fucking silver dick in your mouth just takes me back to that wonderful memory. Okay.
And
go ahead.
And do you still smoke weed?
No, I stopped. I got out of, a couple of years ago, I went crazy, lost my mind 2.5 years ago. So I wound up institutionalized, which sounds worse than it sounds. I put myself in. It wasn't like they fucking butterfly netted me and shit. But I had a break from reality. So I wound up in this place called Sierra Tucson in Arizona. Lost my marbles. They helped me find them again. So I was in there for a month, and they don't let you fucking smoke weed in a place like that. So when I got out, I was like, you know what, man, I've been smoking weed for 15 years straight. Let me see how long I could go. Like it's been a fucking month. I'm going to keep going. So it's been going for a minute now. That being said, if there was ever a time to be fucking smoking weed, good Christ, it's now. I wasted all those wonderful years smoking weed when things were good, and I thought there were pressures in life back then. 54 years old.
Obama was getting elected.
Oh,
You're like,
shit.
token
And I was
up.
like, can you believe this wacky world? And now it's like, I can see myself any day now reading one more fucking story and being like, well, there it is. I'm back, kid.
Yeah, I was laughing with a friend recently that how you doing has become a loaded question.
Yes.
That's the times we're living in. How you doing isn't just a neutral question. It's like, well, pretty bad, but pretty good. But I don't really know.
My new like fucking I love the fuck around and find out videos on fucking YouTube and shit where people are realizing like, what did I do? But now the new fucking videos that are scaring the shit out of me are these videos where people are like, they're going after the Goodwill and they're like, have you seen how fucking expensive Goodwill is? Just fucking enter Goodwill complaining in your YouTube fucking search. Like it is people going like, is a woman going like $16 for this windbreaker? It won't even break wind. And maybe I'm lost. Maybe my head is up my ass, but I'm like, $16 for a windbreaker sounds pretty good. Like, it doesn't sound outrageous to me, but it's a series of videos where people are like, this shit, a pair of jeans used to be like $10 tops. Now this pair of jeans is equitable to like what I would pay at Walmart, like $60. That's terrifying, kids. When you see people bitching about the prices of Goodwill and demanding to see the Goodwill CEO, troubles are ahead of us.
Yeah, they're like, I'd like to speak to a manager, but they're like, this is Goodwill. There is no manager
and
here.
And they get so pissy, man, because they're like, they're getting all this shit for free. Like, they just discovered the Goodwill business model, but they can't understand why it's like prices are going. But it's like prices are going up everywhere, for heaven's sakes. And a lot of these people who are like, I go to the Goodwill, don't look like they need to go to the Goodwill. They're just thrifting. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're, what do they call upcycling and shit like that. So it's not even like somebody who desperately needs Goodwill because they can't clothe themselves or something. It's people going like, I used to get a really nice pair of jeans for like $10. Now they have the audacity to charge me $60. I'm
still like that. I it's very hard for me to walk past a thrift store or even a Goodwill in an okay town without going in.
Where'd you grow up?
Every time I go in.
Where'd you grow up? And did either of you kids grow up rich?
No, I grew up working class in Rockford, Illinois.
I grew up on welfare in Oakland, California. So no.
Fucking A. So I grew up low. My mom wouldn't let me ever say poor. We said lower, middle class. So I'm the same fucking way, where it's like, I see a thrift store, man, like, I'm drawn to that. I'm not like label
it's like
shaming,
a magnet.
but like, I could walk past Gucci, Louis Vuitton, any of those things. But if I see a discount store, if I see a thrift store, there's like, you could find, look at all this old Bullwinkle shit. You know where they sell that? Not at fucking brand new places. So like, I go into a thrift store and I'm always on the hunt and shit. But never once have I come to a thrift store going like, outrageous prices.
Well, I'm definitely going to look up Goodwill complaining.
Goodwill complaints. Oh, extras. I want to tell you this and tell me what you think of this. I heard that in California, and this could be you, Natasha, that extras are one of the only jobs where there's no background check done whatsoever. Therefore, every crowd scene in every movie that you see that's shot on location in LA is filled with sex offenders and perverts. And it really changes the context of every film you've ever seen when in the courtroom, everybody in there is a diddler.
Yes, guilty of something or whatnot. I've basically, when you hire extras, there's like an extras casting department. And I've been doing movies 31 years and it never once occurred to me to be like, did we look into the background of any of these people? Like, you're so delighted to have anybody there, filling a frame that you don't stop to think. What you do later on in life, like now I watch movies I made years ago. Like, I've been watching Dogma over and over for the last month because I've been on tour with it. And I just went back to the Cannes Film Festival with it and watched it there. And now all I think about is like, is that person dead yet? Is that person still alive? Like, anybody who was a white hair in the movie, I'm like, they didn't make it out of the 90s, like heavens. So I think about that, but it's never occurred to me to be like, what do all these fuckers do when they're not being extras in my movie?
It's never occurred to you to think it's good that they're dead. They've been taken out of the population and they're no longer victimizing
I used to mourn these people who made my art with me, but now put to this prison, I'm like, thankfully they're no longer here to bother people.
Wait, so Kevin, there is a sequel coming out to Dogma. Is that correct?
Well, if it will be, yes, kind of, but like years from now. I just started writing it. Dogma has been so awesome. Out of my life for like a long time. It was owned, clench your sphincters, kids, by Harvey Weinstein personally. It was made by Miramax back in the day when Miramax was owned by Disney. Disney was like, we hate
famous extra Harvey Weinstein.
Very famous extra in the background, always in the background. So Disney was like, get rid of this movie. And so Harvey personally bought the movie, although I could do a whole sidebar, and I don't think he ever paid for the movie. I think Disney was like, get rid of the movie. And he was like, all right, I'll take it off your hands for free. And they were like, fine. But he maintained that he bought the movie. And then he distributed it. He licensed it to a young Canadian company called Lionsgate to put it out theatrically. And they were so young and so new that, like, when the movie made $30 million, they took out a double-page spread in Variety to be like, we made $30 million. For the uninitiated, Lionsgate would go on to make the Hunger Games, Twilight franchises. They've done very fucking well. But in 1999, we were it for them. And then Columbia TriStar had it licensed on DVD for 15 years. Then all that shit lapsed, and you couldn't get it. I was trying to get it back from Harvey back before the New York Times piece and anybody knew anything, and would never hear from them because I'd left like the Weinstein Company in 2008 after Zach and Miri make porno and just started going out and doing things by myself. So this is a fucking story. 12 years after I leave Weinstein Company, every few years I reach out, try to get Dogma back, or at least poke them to be like, hey man, like 10th anniversary is coming up, 15th anniversary is coming up. Nothing. I get a phone call, like hold for Harvey Weinstein. And I was like, holy shit, I haven't spoke to this motherfucker in like 12 years. So he goes, Kevin, it's Harvey. I said, hey, what's going on? He goes, I realized that we have Dogma here and we haven't done anything with it. It's just languishing. He's going, and that cast is amazing. They're all still working. Do you think you'd want to do a sequel? And I was like, oh, yes. Are you kidding me? And it was like music to my ears. I'd been ignored for like the better part of a dozen fucking years by this company and that guy and shit, and like couldn't get a word back on my movie. So I was like, fuck yeah, do this. Like, we can even do a streaming series. And I was like, that's fucking yes, we could. Let's do it. He goes, all right, I'll call you next week. We'll get into it. I was like, all right. And I hung up the phone. I was so excited. 3 days later, the New York Times piece.
Stop it.
We all find out who this motherfucker is and shit. And so it is instantly, like your heart sinks in your chest and shit like that, because my career is tied up with them. If you don't buy Clerks, nobody sees Clerks. I don't have a fucking career. So one of the first things you start doing is calling everybody you ever worked with at Miramax to be like, did you know? Did you know? And so I was talking to my friend, John Gordon, who is an exec at Miramax at the time. And I said, John, man, I don't know how to fucking say this, but like, I feel really dirty. That guy called me last week. And he goes, what? I said, Harvey fucking called me and talked about doing a Dogma sequel or a streaming series or something like that. And he goes, Kevin, he had no intention of making a Dogma sequel. He was just calling to see if you were one of the sources on the New York Times piece. That you answered the phone.
Oh.
Yes. That you answered the phone meant that you weren't. If you didn't answer the phone, he would have assumed that you were. And I was like, oh my God. Now, in terms of egregious things that Harvey Weinstein has done, way at the bottom of the list, kids. This is not me going, what a victim I am. But
I disagree.
I thank you for that. It's very hard to get that kind of backing. Most people are like, get in line. But trauma's not a contest. Let's be honest. I learned that in the nut house and stuff. But regardless, yes. So then the movie was, lost because he went through some legal things. 20th anniversary, which is like 5 years ago. I said, he ain't doing nothing. He's in jail. It's just sitting somewhere. I'm going to try to buy this movie back. So I wrote a very heartfelt letter to a convicted rapist and said it to him. And it said, like, look, you've made many movies. I've only made a few. This one is tied in with my childhood faith and my dead father. I was like, please sell it back to me. And I offered $250,000, which admittedly is a very low figure, but you got to start somewhere. Heard back from the lawyer. No. Wrote another letter, pulled together as many resources as I can, was going to have to close my comic book store that had been open at that point for 20 years. Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, Red Bank, New Jersey. And went back and made another offer, $500,000. Heard back from the lawyer. No. At that point, I'm tapped out. I'm not a rich cat. That's why you always see me in fucking media, because this is how I make a living and shit. I can't believe me. I wish I got rich off Clerks and didn't have to do shit for the rest of my life, but I did. So I'm a working man. So I pulled together all my resources, reached out to some cats who might have a vested interest in seeing Dogma have a life beyond where it was, rescue them. I've called Ben and Matt. Then I was able to go back and make another offer to Harvey Weinstein for $1 million and was told by the lawyer, no. So what I heard was he was holding out for $5 million. Now, I love Dogma, but like if I had $5 million, I'd make a whole ass new movie. Motherfuck buying an old movie, you know what I'm saying? So at that point, that's it. I couldn't celebrate the 20th and shit. Movies just locked away while this guy's also locked away. So what happened was recently, like 8 months ago, this woman, Alessandra Williams, calls me up. She goes, hi, I have Dogma. Do you want to talk about it? And I was like, what? Yes. So I got in touch with her. We met at the San Vicente bungalows and shit. And she told me the story. She grew up where I grew up. She's from Middletown, New Jersey. Like I went to Henrietta Regional. She went to Middletown North. She's younger than me, way younger. But when she was a kid, 10 years old, she saw Dogma. She had a mother that was pretty permissive. And she fell in love with the movie and she didn't understand, but she'd watch it over and over and stuff. Then she grew up. She had a whole ass career. She acted. She produced. She knows a lot of people, very connected in this business. And one day she saw me doing an interview online where I talked about trying to get the movie back, writing those letters and shit. And she was like, "Oh, that's a good movie. People should see it." And then she got involved. That's it. Like, I tried to make it happen like 5 years ago.
Wait, did she pay money?
Yeah, what'd she get it for?
She got together a bunch of resources, and what happened was he's going through a trial again. He's back in court. So he needed money for his legal defense, and he sold off all the assets that he personally owned that he had left. That included a tranche of movies, which had some karate movies that he personally owned. He had, remember Michael Moore's movie, Fahrenheit 9/11?
Mm-hmm.
He had to do the same thing after Dogma. He bought that away from Miramax personally, so he owned that. Before Dogma, he had done it with Larry Clark's first movie, which was Rosario Dawson's first movie, Kids. He had to buy that movie back, and he did the same thing with Dogma. He sold that tranche of movies to her. She raised financing, sold off the movies that were in Dogma, and then came to me to be like, "What would you do?" And I said, well, number one, I would tour it. That's what I did with like Jane Silent Bob Reboot and Clerks 3 and stuff. Like, I overcharge to see my movie because I show up with it. Like, show you the movie and then do a 2-hour show afterwards, and runs anywhere from $50 to $100 and stuff. So it's not like I got a new model. It's just like I do what I love to accompany the movie. Most filmmakers let the movie go out, speak for itself. Sometimes I just make the movie just so I can stand in front of an audience and be like, pat me on the back. Codependent, fucking people pleaser who can't validate himself.
Oh, you are a comic. You really are a comic.
100%. Which honestly, like, that took me years to fucking warm up to, because I always held comics in great reverence. Like, I know how long it takes to build a set, to build 5 strong minutes, 10 strong minutes. And how I got into comedy was the back door, right? Like, I made Clerks, and because of that, they throw you out on stage with the movie after it's done to be like, go explain yourself. And I could never sit there and wax, erudite about filmmaking. I'd made one movie. It looked like it was shot through a glass of milk. So instead, I would just default to telling funny stories about how the movie got made and stuff, which is way more entertaining. So after a lifetime of 10 years of doing Q&A after movies or colleges after screenings and stuff, like, one day they put me in theaters. Like, I used to do colleges forever, man. It was so awesome. The money was so easy. And the kids, I was so young. Like, when I started, I was about 23, 24. So I was close to their age and shit. And so I didn't know you could charge for this sort of thing. For the first 5 years, I just did it for free. And then one day I was doing Rutgers and Camden. And I did like 2 hours, and then I went out to get a smoke. I put on some Clerks cartoons, and I went out to get a smoke. And the girl in charge of the student activities thing, she goes, "Wow, you're talking way longer than Janine Garofalo." I was like, "Oh, Janine Garofalo came here and did this?" She said, "Yeah, but she only did 45 minutes and left." She's like, "You're on hour 2. How much longer you can go?" I was like, "I can go another 2 hours." And she goes, "Oh, that's great." And she goes, "And you didn't even charge us $20,000." And I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah, we paid Janine Garofalo $20,000." I was like, "People get paid for this shit?" And so I started demanding.
Why were you doing
Wait, you were doing 4 hours for free?
Again, codependent people pleaser who cannot validate himself. So a room full of people that are sitting there going, "Kev, good job." Like, fucking fuck the money. That was worth it alone. However, once I found out there was also money involved, suddenly it became my side hustle. And it took me many years to work myself up to work on a true comedy club stage, because I didn't feel like I had earned it. I didn't feel like I was worth it. I did Carnegie Hall. I fucking sold out Carnegie Hall, and I would still never go to the Improv because I was like, you got to be a comedian to do that sort of thing. And then one day, who was it? I think it was Ralphie May, who goes, "Kevin, if your audience comes to the comedy club, that's a comedy club audience. Doesn't matter if they're there because they like you. They're there to laugh." He's going, "You're a comedian, face it." And I was like, no. I'm a filmmaker who tells funny stories about the movies he makes. He goes, "No, you're a comic." It took me a long time to accept that and stuff. And only because I grew up fucking worshiping comedians, man. Like, I was a huge Carlin fan growing up. Carlin was a gift to me.
He's in the movie too.
He's in Dogma, man. That's why.
I forgot.
My dad
Did you freak out?
Class clown when I was 9 years old, which, as you know,
I got that too.
Way too early. And he said, "Don't let your mother hear you listen to this." And I didn't give it to you and shit. And I would listen to it incessantly, because when you're a kid, the bad language is the draw. But then when you're listening, he's just a wizened motherfucker. Like he's smart and you could sit there and listen to him. So I'd memorize the bits so I could do it in Catholic school. And one day my mom come into the room and I was wearing the headphones because my dad said only listen to it on the hi-fi. So she's talking to me. I didn't hear her. She yanks the cord out just in time to hear cocksucker, motherfucker, tits. And she's like, oh, she goes, that's George Carlin. Where'd you get that? I was like, Dad gave it to me. I threw him right under the fucking bus. And so he comes in the room and he sees the scene and he's like, why did you say anything? And my mom's like, you can't. I know he likes comedy, but you can't give him R-rated comedians like George Carlin. He can only listen to good, clean comedians like Bill Cosby. So I was a big
and Harvey Weinstein.
And Harvey Weinstein. So I loved comedy growing up. Sam Kinison was a fucking god to me. Carlin, of course, absolute, like my comedy Rushmore, he'd be on it. So
was your dad alive when you did Dogma?
He was, and I got to introduce him.
Did he freak out that you cast him?
I got to introduce him to George Carlin. Like George Carlin talked to him on set, and George Carlin, like that's one of the pleasures of this life has been introducing my parents to like A, their heroes, or B, my childhood heroes. Like my dad, I will never forget looking over from directing a scene on Dogma, like directing Alan Rickman, which is cool in and of itself, and seeing my father in the peripherals just sitting there having a conversation with George Carlin. That made me feel more accomplished than fucking working with Alan. When I was making Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, we were shooting in the third act. There's a big fight in this fake blunt cave on this fake movie set. And Mark Hamill plays a character called Cockknocker. So it's Silent Bob dressed as Blunt Man. He's fighting Cockknocker. So I'm lightsaber fighting Mark Hamill, essentially. So we shoot like his coverage, which is over fake version of me onto him. And then we're doing the reverse coverage, which is over stunt version of him onto the real me. So my parents are off to the side, sitting by the monitor and shit. And Mark Hamill is just such a lovely person. He's like the host of the universe. So he just sits down and starts talking to them and shit like that. And he's like, this must blow your mind. He's like, look at all this. Look at this ridiculousness. This must blow your mind that this is your son doing this. And my mom goes like, not really. She's going, not much has changed. When he was a boy, he played with your action figure, and now he just plays with you. Moments like that like, just make it so fucking worth it. But introducing my dad to George Carlin was true highlight stuff. And it's not like we ever had a conversation afterwards where he was like, you did it, son. You aggregated from fan to the moment to equal, and you introduced me to my hero who then became your hero. But my father loved George Carlin and I love my father. So it was a damn Skippy good bet that I was going to love George Carlin and did my whole life. So when we started making Dogma, when we were casting it, I was like, there's only one guy we could get, man. And there's a motherfucker who most people think of him as like legendary comic. He didn't even think of himself that way. All he ever wanted to do was act. So he felt like he was a failed actor, backed into being one of the greatest comics all time, right? But what he wanted to be was Danny Kaye. Old movie actor, did song and dance stuff. He was like Hans Christian Andersen in the movie. So that's what George wanted to be, because George would go to the movies with his mom when he was a kid, and his brother and his mom loved fucking Danny Kaye. So George is like, that's what I want to do. So he got used as an actor from time to time, right? Like with Six You Get Egg Roll, the Bill and Ted movies, obviously. Barbra Streisand used him at Prince of Tides. But generally, people didn't cast him a lot. So whenever I called up and was like, hey, man, you want to come play? He was there in a heartbeat, because that's what he loved to do. And yes, they were like Kevin Smith movies, but he was like, fuck it, I get to act. I get to do the thing I've always wanted to do. So it was mutually beneficial, because like he wanted to act and I just wanted to hang out and fucking listen to George Carlin talk casually. You guys know comedy and you know comedians and whatnot, but it's very tough to just relate to a comedian if they're on. You know what I'm saying? I love Tracy Morgan to death. Worked with him in a heartbeat. Worked with him on Cop Out. Worked with him on Jay and Silent Bob. Strike back in the day. But when you go to work with Tracy, you leave with a rictus grin, like fucking affixed to your face, because all day long, whether he's on camera or standing next to you, he is on and he is working. He's Kev, you know what I watched last night? Frankenstein. And he does a 20-minute bit, like out of nowhere. George was the other comedian who, if you didn't know he was a comic, you wouldn't have known he was one of the funniest people in the world. He was just interesting. He could talk about things and he was interested in other people, but he was never like, you know what I noticed? Do you ever see this? Like he didn't work anybody. Like, so on set, he was definitely more into the craft. He was a true method actor, is mind-bending.
I always say, you've arrived when you meet your child in like Hollywood world, when you meet a childhood hero and then get to know them well enough to become annoyed by them. Yeah. You're like, I've really made it now.
I think it was vice versa in our case. He, at one point, like, when I wrote Dogma and directed Dogma, I was steeped in the faith. So I believed everything in the movie and whatnot. He's a lapsed Catholic. I was a very active Catholic. And so when we're shooting like the third act of the movie, where like he's dedicating the church, Ben and Matt's characters show up and all hell breaks loose. People start dying. And so George's like, what's going on in the story right now? Could you explain? I said, yeah, the angels are going to kill everybody in the crowd, then cut off their wings. They become human. Then they walk through that archway. All their sins are forgiven. When they come out, presumably the cops gun them down. They get to go to heaven. And if they go to heaven, that disproves God's existence and being becomes nothingness. And he's like, and where did you pick this up? I said, it's from the plenary indulgence. Like churches do that. My church did it when I was 13. Our Lady Perpetual Help had a 100-year centennial. And so the Holy See was like, you can declare a day of plenary indulgence. Whoever walks through the doorway, all of your sins are wiped clean and shit. Like one of these very ridiculous things that as a child you fixate on because you're like, what the fuck? We live by all these rules. And then one day I walk through a door and fucking I can do whatever I want. This makes no fucking sense. So as I'm explaining it to George, he's looking at me. He's just watching me, like beatifically, just like this. Like the way an adult looks at a child who over-explains Star Wars to them, and he's just looking at me like this. And then finally he goes, you really believe in all this shit, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I was raised Catholic. You were raised Catholic. You don't believe in this? And he goes, no, I'm smarter than that. And that was the beginning of the end of my faith.
That was it for you?
That was the beginning of the end, man. Smartest man I ever met.
Hilarious.
Suddenly like started having me question. And I had heard George do Catholic bits growing up and whatnot. But at the same time, in my heart of hearts, I was like, every lapsed Catholic is still an ardent believer. And I couldn't wait to work with him because I really did want to be like, come on, George, you do believe. But when I met George, he was like, fuck no, I don't believe. I'm a grown-up, Kevin.
That is so funny. I mean, first of all, I'm a not always on comic, so that's really great to hear about George Carlin. And then I also think it's interesting that Joan Rivers in her documentary was like, I always wanted to be an actor. And it is this interesting thing, like, and then you're this like celebrated director who like, changed the course of movies, but you're like, I'm just a comic. And
but that's the thing. It's like, I'd much rather do comedy. I'd much rather, everyone always wants to do something else, man. If you're lucky enough, to be blessed or whatever, to get to do the thing you dream about, oddly enough, after you do it for a minute, the first thing you do is go like, well, what else is possible? And so you start looking around at other art forms. So like once I got in with film, one of the first things I wanted to do was write comic books. I was like, hey, look, man, if I can use this movie shit to write a fucking Daredevil, that'd be amazing. And I got to do that and got to work with DC. So you start going like, well, this seems interesting. When podcasting happened, it was like 2007. And the only podcast was like the Ricky Gervais podcast at that point, which, as we all know, wasn't really a podcast. It was the radio show. They just put it online. And so
he's a pretty religious Catholic, Ricky Gervais.
Oh, yeah.
He still believes.
He's fun to listen to, man. Like, talk about lapsed. He's lapsed with a vengeance. So Scott Mosier, my producer, was like, have you heard the Ricky Gervais podcast? I was like, what's a podcast? And he goes, it's kind of like a commentary track for a Laserdisc or a DVD, but there's no movie. And I was like, well, we do that all the time. We should make one of these podcasts. And without ever listening to it, we went and recorded our first podcast, Smodcast, and wound up doing that for like 12 years straight and shit. And that was the idea of like, wait, I can have my own radio show and nobody will fucking stop me. I can say whatever I want. Like fucking, I can record it and put it out there. Like it was a beautiful thing. But at the same time, it changed the way I had conversations for the rest of my life. Because like some of my favorite people, my favorite pastime would be just sitting around bullshitting with them. Then all of a sudden in a world where you knew you could record a podcast, you're like, wait, just let's hold this for the podcast. And suddenly you stop having interesting conversations unless there's a microphone or now a fucking camera on the thing. So it changed the way that like I related to my friends. And I'm sure you all have like fucking friends and a social life and like maybe go out to dinner with people and shit like that. everything I do is work related, and my love language, as the kids now say, is to drag people into what I do. So podcasting made that even easier. So I can like sit down and interview fucking anybody. I can sit down and interview my mom, which I did on so many episodes and whatnot. So I loved that. I've loved pivoting, and I could only pivot because things worked out in the first place.
Yeah. So everybody wants to be something they're not.
But most people want to be in the movies.
Right. It's only hard.
Only you.
Not anymore. Fuck.
It's only
there ain't no
Harvey-
money in it.
It's only Harvey Weinstein that got to do both things he really loved. You know, he really won the game of life.
He was able to drag the people he loved into what he did.
That's right. Listen, we got callers waiting for some
Are you
of
serious?
this Smith wisdom. Yeah,
we have two callers I think we have time for two callers.
I want to know what you think about this new American Pope and what you think audiences now. Do you know about this resurgence of like Gen Z hipster Catholicism, like based Catholicism?
Wait, Catholicism is finally based, and I missed that
It's
fucking
back.
train.
Yeah, man, it's back, and there's like all these like super tattooed, like sort of semi-conservative weightlifting kind of, but they're kind of cool too. They're not like tools. They're like, but it's back. It's like in the whole trad wifo-sphere, you know, is like, no, we're going back to the OG Catholic strain.
I'll be honest with you, that's not good for me or this movie. I was really looking forward to a 2025 where religious controversy went away. I thought for some reason we had more religious freedom in 2025 than we had in 1999. I've been disabused of that notion lately. So hearing that there are boy trad wives out there that might view my movie as, you know, blasphemous, that makes me feel unsafe again. That makes me want to go back to Sierra Tucson.
Well, I think
Moshe.
I'm sorry, I didn't know it would be a trigger word.
I'm
for
getting
you.
off
But
this. I'm calling my therapist and be like, "It's happening again, Thomas."
You don't like podcasting so much now, do you?
No, I really don't.
I think that what's happening is as the fabric of society pulls apart, people are, and this happened in the 60s. It just happened with Eastern religion, is that people go for answers when it feels like society.
But Eastern religion makes sense. I mean, Catholicism is like laden with like abuse and sexism and so many.
I'm sure the Eastern religions have their dalliances and such things as well. But I do think part of the religious resurgence of Catholicism is about the fact that people are lost. And when you're lost, you go to a big castle where there's a man in a costume that says, You will be found. Just walk through this doorway.
Heavens, yes. Think about it. If they're charging $16 for a windbreaker, we have to turn to Jesus.
That's right. That's right. Maybe in the afterlife there will be cheaper windbreakers.
As society collapses, it all just makes more sense. Yeah, I honestly, like, when I just toured the movie across the country. So like we do 2 shows a night. And then I'd intro, and then we show the movie, and then I do a Q&A afterwards. So like the movie's 2 hours, and then I would do a 2-hour Q&A and stuff. And so as I'm going across the country with it, our first night is Easter Sunday, 4/20 in Los Angeles. The next morning, the Monday where I'm going to San Diego to do the next 2 shows, the Pope dies. And instantly, like when I was doing Q&A that night, people were like, "Was it Dogma?" And I was like, "No way. I heard it was JD Vance, man." I threw him right up. But
it's definitely one of the two.
It did pave the way for, you know, the Pope Chicago, the Pope, which is charming. But I heard somewhere online, I wish it was one of these specious facts, and I wish I'd paid more attention to, so I knew exactly what it said. But essentially, I don't know if it's some prediction or I don't think it's from some holy book, but somebody once said, like, when a pope comes from America, that is the true sign of the decline of Western civilization, because it means that Catholicism has conquered every aspect of the culture, or America has conquered every aspect of the culture, including the last bastion, which was faith and religion. I don't know, somebody smart said it, and I'm probably not doing it justice.
Well, I think that you have a lot of wisdom. I think you shouldn't be concerned. I think you should. Oh, so wait. So you own it now, so you can make Dogma too.
Yeah, I don't own it, but Alessandra, the woman who rescued the movie, she pulled money together and saved it. She's the
I
one that
love
bought
this.
all those movies from Harvey and stuff, sold them off, and then kept this one. So she owns it. But yes, we can make a sequel. One of the first things she said was like, would you ever make a sequel? And I was like, oh my God. When I first started my career in the beginning, I was like, sequels, I got too many new ideas. But Clerks 3 is now on home video. So I was like, absolutely, I can fucking talk about it.
Just cast Bill Burr instead of Louis C.K. as the George Carlin part.
How about neither? Not because I don't like Bill Burr, but I can't. George Carlin, irreplaceable, for heaven's sakes.
I know.
But look,
I would suggest
I like Bill Burr an awful lot, man. So, and he's acting.
I would suggest
he's on Broadway.
Oh, that's right. He's in Glenn Ross. I would suggest a young Natasha Leggero, at least in a crowd scene, at least in the sex
I'll be
offender
an extra.
in the sex offender wide of Dogma 2.
100%. Here's my vow on camera and whatnot. At the very least, Natasha, you get to be a background extra in the next thing I make. Probably,
and I did that.
A line or two.
I feel like I did that, so I get
I
credit
need my
as a
SAG
husband.
card,
10%,
so I need...
man. You get to wet your beak a
Can
little.
I get? Just let me do craft services, and I'll be happy, Kevin.
Done and done. You know who
That's
did
all
our
I
craft
need.
service? Speaking of Chasing Amy, the boy who did our, it's so funny I call him a boy. The boy who did our craft services on Chasing Amy, his name is Brian Lynch. Brian Lynch grew up to be the guy who writes all the Minions movies. He gets paid millions of dollars to write Banana over and over again. That motherfucker gave you chocolate milk on set, Natasha. Back in the day.
No, extras weren't allowed to go to craft service, but we did get. I remember you were like, let's get the extras some water, because they also aren't allowed to be talked to by the director. So then there's like an assistant director who has to, if you have a concern, you have to go to the assistant director. But you were like, let's get them all some water. So thank you.
You know why?
Because
I wasn't union yet. I wasn't DGA, so I could break the rules and stuff. But now as DGA, I'd be like, don't talk to me.
That's so cool. I love the idea of a magnanimous young Kevin Smith. Like, you know what? Let's get these perverts some water. They deserve it.
I was the Gunga Din of indie film back then.
That's right.
Like, I was always trying to hydrate everybody.
We could listen to you all day. This is so fascinating. But let's bring somebody else in and let's get some of this wisdom to be sprinkled down onto Jera in Pasadena.
Ooh, Pasadena. Close
right
by.
next door. Hey, Tosh.
Yeah, Moshe.
Have you noticed that lately I've been smelling pretty good and you haven't woken up every morning as you usually do with, damn, what the hell's wrong with you? You smell like shit.
No, first of all, I would never think that, darling.
Well, I appreciate that. But I have been smelling good, right? And it's thanks to Harry's body wash.
Yeah, there's like all these really great smells. Like, remember, I don't want to say the name of it, but there used to be this like brand and everyone would kind of smell like it. And it was like kind of nasty.
You talking...
Don't say it.
Hatchet?
Don't say it.
It's like a hatchet?
But like these new smells, I just love them. There's a smell that my favorite one is Stone, and that is sort of like a charcoal and lime.
I really like sweet stuff, so I go for the fig, which is cedar and orange. There's a spring that's notes of lemon and basil.
Redwood, we can think we're on vacation all the time. It's kind of like an evergreen and thyme smell.
And then if you take ayahuasca or mushrooms, you do the wildlands, which is like a sandalwood, cypress kind of deserty thing. They're really, really nice. They're thick and sudsy, lathery and foamy. They don't have parabens. They don't have sulfates. They don't have dyes. And the best part is the price. It's $8. Some of these comparable brands are like $30. It's $8 Harry's.
These scents are made by family-owned luxury French fragrance houses. Be known for smelling amazing. Shower with Harry's. You can try Harry's body wash today for just $8 at harrys.com/honeymoon.
I've been shaving my face with Harry's for years, and now I wash my body with them too. You know them for their shaving stuff, but they've also got deodorant, antiperspirant, and 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioners. Try Harry's. harrys.com/honeymoon for a sniff of this incredible body wash. Hey, Tosh.
Yes, Moshe.
Today's episode deals with the frustration and struggle that can sometimes arise in a relationship where one person has a touch of the ADHD. And that's why we're so stoked to be working with Skylight. It's a digital calendar that takes away all that scheduling confusion.
If your brain is already at full capacity with to-dos and errands and birthdays and dinner plans for Tuesday, let Skylight Calendar handle the rest. It syncs your entire family's schedule onto a sleek digital display so you can focus on more important things like making your husband take you on a date night.
That's
every
right.
week. And you can schedule it on Skylight. And guess what? He can't say, oh, I forgot, because it's on the family calendar.
That's right. And your kid, let's say they come and they say, oh, I've got a project due on this particular time. You just plug it in and it comes up on this really smart looking, kind of beautifully framed thing. It looks a bit like a piece of artwork. The Skylight calendar was designed to connect the digital and the non-digital worlds while bringing families together.
It's a Wi-Fi connected digital display that showcases your family's schedule with clarity, color, and brilliance in either a 10 or 15-inch HD touchscreen. So if you go right now, you can get one of these. Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars. This is the big one by going to skylightcal.com/honeymoon.
That's right. You can manage your events, your chores, your grocery lists while assigning colors for each of your family members.
Moshe likes that part. He likes to make it the color.
It helps because I then know what my job is and things are not left behind as much, and Natasha is happier. Go to skylightcal.com/honeymoon for $30 off your 15-inch calendar.
That is skylightcal.com/honeymoon.
Hey guys.
Hi.
How you doing?
What's so funny?
Pasadena, man, right near Glendale, right?
Yep.
I almost died in Glendale. When I had my heart attack, massive heart attack, it was at the Alex Theater. Between gigs, I had two shows. They were shooting it for a Showtime special. And I finished the first show.
You had a heart attack on stage?
Almost, not on stage, backstage. I was finished with the first show. And I was about to start the second show, but I was like, I can't quite breathe. And I almost fucking died. Anyway, how are you?
Did the special come out?
It did. It's called Kevin Smith. What is it? It's hold on.
Silent I almost died in Glendale.
Silent but deadly.
I gotta say though, if I get to pick the setting for my death, it's on stage or backstage.
100%.
It just seems
That's
cool.
a good way to do it.
100%. But just not with all due respect to Glendale, not the Alex Theater. That's what I was saying as I was flying. I was like, not the Alex Theater.
To be honest, not Glendale.
Honestly, you're lucky, dude, that it was the Alex Theater because it probably gave you the will to live. If you had been in a nicer kind of classic vaudeville theater, you would have been like, this is good enough.
If it was Carnegie Hall, I would have been like, this will be a good death.
Okay, so Jera, how can we help you?
Okay, so I have an issue with my best friend. We've been best friends since we were like 8 years old. And she, of course, has this terrible boyfriend who she's moving to Minnesota with. And he's like super controlling. He's a hypochondriac. He doesn't respect women. He mistreats her dog. Like, it's bad shit. But yeah, anyway, so she's just like at a really unhappy point right now. And I've been trying to be nice to him. But at this point, at this point, I feel like I need to say something, but I'm worried because I've been cut out of friendships before for just butting in whenever they're like, oh no, he's the love of my life. So yeah, I guess I wanted some advice.
That's tough.
Kevin, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. But it's tough love. If you say nothing, it'll haunt you forever. And if something bad happens, it'll haunt you even worse. Problem is when you say something, people in love, they can't see past themselves and their relationship. And so naturally, who's going to take the hit? It's not going to be him where she's like, oh, you're right. I suddenly see him through new eyes. They're moving to fucking Minnesota together. Who's going to take the hit is you. And you're going to be easy to leave behind because they are going to a different place altogether. That being said, that's what a friend does. You got to deliver that information. Like, especially this motherfucker lost me at abuses the dog or mistreats the dog, for heaven's sakes. A dog is an avatar of one's own soul.
And imagine if they have children. It's like, I can't imagine how terrible he'll be with kids. Like, and that's what she wants.
So how detailed does she get, Kevin, with her talk with her friend? Is it general, or do you think you give specific examples?
Honestly, it's worth going specific, but just know that this is probably, at least for the time being, a relationship killer, right? Like, you're not going to walk away from this scot-free without her holding resentment, because nobody wants to hear that their happiness is predicated on shaky ground from the perspective of somebody who loves them.
Yeah.
So the best you can hope for is you get to say your piece, say it with kindness, say it with love, say that you would do anything to maintain the friendship and whatnot. But just know that there's probably a good chance that you wind up in the doghouse or with silent treatment for a while. However, when the relationship does go south,
which it will,
like you.
Yeah, that's the thing. I know it will. And it's like, I just want to get to it before there's a marriage or children involved, you know?
Here's your chance, though, to make the big impact by saying something, before
I think
you get to the altar or something like that. But just know that it's going to come at a cost that sucks. But if you love your friend, it's worth paying that price, because at least you maybe make an impact, or maybe it makes an impact temporarily that doesn't sink in until when it's needed.
And maybe you'll be one of 4 people talking to her. You don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe she's on the fence.
I definitely am. Like her sister.
And maybe she's on the fence and maybe she's on the fence and has a silent anguish that you have not clocked yet. And this will be the thing that pushes her over the edge. I think Kevin's probably right. Most likely not. And so, like, what is a friendship? A friendship is it about you having good feelings, being able to hang with your friend, or is it about loving and caring about that person enough to tell them the truth? That's scary, because I think Kevin's right. It's probably, if nothing else, I think there are ways to approach it, to say, listen, I don't want this to affect our friendship. I understand it probably will, but I'm willing to take that risk. But know that I love you no matter what, and I'm there for you. But I think probably, when you're in a love, especially in a love that's toxic, it's even more illusory than regular healthy love, because you kind of are creating a veneer of illusion so that you can stay in that relationship. It's harder to see reality from inside of that veneer. But I think Kevin's right. If you love this person, it's worth saying something. Tosh?
Right. There's never a good time to do a bad thing or a hard thing, so you're just going to have to do it. What I like to do in these situations is make a phone call, because then I can have my notes written in front of me and I can just be a little more focused than like a meandering in-person thing where then you feel guilty. And it's just like you can just say, I just wanted to get that off my chest, and I'm hoping for the best, but I just felt as your friend I had to say it.
Oh, and arrange a dog napping. I think that's a very good idea. Find a stranger on Craigslist to come abduct the dog, then have the conversation.
I would steal the dog. I would absolutely steal the dog.
You could do that yourself. You wear a mask, you bring some lunch meat, right. Break into the house, throw the lunch meat around, and the dog is eating it. You snatch the dog.
That's a very good idea. That's our primary advice. Steal the dog with lunch meat. And secondarily, help your friend.
All right. I think that was good advice. I think we solved it.
Yeah, we solved your life.
Wow. Okay.
But you have to do the hard thing, though. You have to call her.
I mean, the truth is, like, would you rather have a unbroken friendship with somebody that is suffering and you never said anything, or risk the entire friendship and know that you were the one person that told her the truth? It's a difficult decision, but it seems like a clear answer.
I mean, honestly, I've been talking to other people about this, and I was a little surprised that all 3 of you were like, you need to talk to her, because most of my friends have been saying it's more important for you to just be her friend right now, because it's all going to come crumbling. But I'm like, when is it going to come crumbling?
You
honestly, this is good to hear.
You are being her friend by saying something. Like, it's not, like,
how mmany movies have those friends made?
Yeah, that's right. Did they make Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back?
I mean, did they successful?
Yeah, they did. No, but I think what your friends are getting at is that when a person's in a let's call it abusive relationship, that those people become isolated in those relationships, and when people shame them and shut them out, they don't have anybody to turn to when they do want help. So I think if you are going to say something, your friends are making a good point. Saying it from a place of ultimate gentleness and not condemnation and judgment, finding a way to do that, and maybe that includes running this by 1,000 people before you do the actual conversation, is important, because I think that's real. When people are in abusive relationships and everybody's cut them out because of the behavior that leads you to staying in an abusive relationship, there's nobody to turn to and they can't escape. That is important.
All right.
Honestly, all right. Good luck, honey.
Oh, there we go. Solved it.
No, thank you. Well, seriously, because that's my gut instinct. I always am like the super blunt friend, but I've been trying to soften myself a lot lately. And I mean, she even told me, like, whenever I broke up with my not so great boyfriend, she was like, if this ever happens to me, you need to tell me something. So
now you got your opening line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Natasha's right.
Okay.
All right. Well, we have someone else to help, so you're welcome.
No more problem.
Bye, darling.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Hey, Tosh.
Yeah, Moshe.
You know, last night I was feeling really down, really piss poor, and I realized I hadn't been drinking water all day. And that's when I ran and grabbed a packet of Cure.
Cure is a plant-based hydrating electrolyte drink mix with no added sugar. This is so important. No added sugar. It's natural, delicious, and a convenient way for you to keep you and your whole family hydrated without all that artificial crap.
It doesn't have crap. It's made with clean ingredients, zero added sugar, giving you pure hydration at only 25 calories per serving. It's doctor approved, and it's safe for the whole family from adults to kids ages 1 and up.
It also doesn't have that nasty aspartame taste. I cannot handle that. These flavors are so good. It's like makes you feel like you've just drank 10 glasses of water. I love the feeling of something that is not too sweet, but that is a little bit better than water.
I like the tropical punch. Natasha goes for the lemonade, and our kid loves the watermelon flavor. But there's a whole bunch of flavor. If you want to stay hydrated, use some Himalayan salt stuff. That's what goes in Cure. It's the only hydration brand that is FSA eligible.
Hydration goes beyond just drinking water. It's about replenishing the electrolytes we lose through sweat, sleep, alcohol, and daily activities, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Water alone isn't enough to do the job. That is why you need to try Cure, the electrolyte drink mix that tastes as amazing as it makes you feel.
Take that, water, you bitch. For Endless Honeymoon listeners, Cure is offering 20% off your first order. Stay hydrated and feel your best by visiting curehydration.com/honeymoon and using promo code honeymoon at checkout.
That's curehydration.com/honeymoon and use the code honeymoon for 20% off your first order.
Hey, Tosh.
Yeah, Moshe.
You know, I was at Wii Spa this week with my brother, and I saw this couple playing a card game called, like, Get to Know Your Love or Connecting to Your Love, and I just thought, these pathetic fools. They've never heard about the Paired app. They could be doing this with so much more ease than some nerdy cards. Paired is an app that you and your partner download. You play it together, and every day Paired gives you personalized questions, quizzes, and games to stay connected, deepen your conversations, and have fun too.
And I think it's really healthy for a relationship to make the time daily to connect with your partner. Like, we all have such busy lives. We're exhausted. They're the kids. You want to go to bed at 9. But ultimately, you are neglecting your partner. So you can learn how to communicate better, open up more, and argue less.
All of Paired's content is backed by experts and relationship therapists, and it's proved to work. It really is nice to give your relationship some attention. It's just like a plant. It needs water, it needs sunlight, it needs to be pruned, and we think it needs Paired. Whether you're just a few dates in or have been together a long time, find the time to connect with your partner and nourish your relationship. Start strengthening your relationship in an easy, fun way, and it only takes 5 minutes a day.
Head to paired.com/honeymoon to get a 7-day free trial and 25% off if you sign up for a subscription. Just head to paired.com/honeymoon to sign up today.
Practice love every day with Paired, the #1 app for couples. Download the app at paired.com/honeymoon. That's
Kevin,
it.
you could have been a priest. That was so
You could have been a priest.
equanimous.
I
Is
wish
that the right word?
I wish I'd met you guys before I went into the nut house. You would have saved me $40,000 fucking dollars. Good thing I had that primo insurance. Fuck. But that's
I've done Nut House too. I've been there.
isn't it
I was
great?
young,
like
but-
literally, isn't it great? Like, it's honestly, I firmly believe everybody should check in sooner or later, because it
At least one time.
gives you a moment to be like, wait, what am I doing? Where was I? What's going on? You know, we live in a world that moves like this, and we work in a business that moves even faster. So the idea of stopping ever, like, usually only happens when something fails or breaks. There was a kid when I was in there, he was like 17. And at first I felt so bad because I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, a poor 17-year-old kid. Then over the course of the month that I was there, I was like, I wish I had gone crazy at age 17. it would have made my 20s, 30s, 40s so much easier because I would have been given this cool technology and a better understanding of myself going forward. So I advocate it for everybody. Just make sure you got good insurance because it is not fucking, like everything in life, it's not cheap.
Like windbreakers at Goodwill. It's not cheap to check yourself into Sierra
Yes.
Tucson.
It is on the level of a fucking Goodwill windbreaker, kids.
All right, do you have time for one more call?
Yeah, fuck
That was quick.
My God, yeah.
Let's bang it
solve
out.
some ills.
All right. So we're going to call Ben in Portland, or he's calling us, and we're going to let him talk to us.
That's right. We're going to allow him the privilege.
How are you, man?
I'm great. How are you?
What's that poster in the background in the corner?
Oh, it's a Mandalorian poster.
Fucking A.
Yeah. I very lucky to work on that show. So
What?
Oh, you worked on Mandalorian?
I
oh,
did.
Cool.
Yeah.
What'd you do?
What'd you
a little
do?
bit in
Are you
pre-production.
Grogu?
I wish. That's a life goal. But
You're adorable as Grogu.
thank you.
Why are you calling
I'm an art
us then?
director.
You must have no problems in your life if you're working on The Mandalorian. I know if I was working on The Mandalorian, I'd have no complaints whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, that was in the past. So, now the problems have come. That was when life was good,
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
It's a
You were
distant
summarily
memory.
fired from The Mandalorian for toxic behavior on set.
Yes.
I remember
Yes.
now. I read about this in the trades. Yes, sir. How can we help you?
Yeah. Well, I have ADHD. I know, Moshe, you are, I think, are going through some of that as well. No? Okay.
Don't bring me into your world, brother. Don't bring me into your world. I've solved
Sure.
everything.
All right.
Sure.
Well, I mean, that's why
I'll tell you,
right?
your wall
So-
does not. Your wall and the whole decorative demeanor of your background does not suggest ADHD. It's looking real tidy. You must have a
you
partner
think so?
in your life.
I do. So my partner has OCD. So that is where some of our conflict comes up. And I want to be clear because I know a lot of people have like co-opted OCD, right? They're like, I have OCD, but they really just like to tidy things. Like my partner actually has obsessive thoughts around cleaning, or like driving is very uncomfortable for her because she gets worried that she might hurt someone, if she swerves off the road or something accidentally, right? So
I have obsessive thoughts about cleaning up Moshe's mess.
She has obsessive resentment disorder. Yeah, ORD. Yeah.
So that is
Okay.
it's a frequent point of conflict in our relationship. It used to be a bit more. I think we've been working on it and getting to a better spot where it's tough for me to finish chores. I would say, like, I'm great at starting them. Like, I'll start loading the dishwasher and then I'll leave to go do something else, and I've left the dishwasher open. It's loaded, but it's just open. And like, for me, it's, if I was single, I would do that, do something else, come back an hour later and finish it, right? For my wife, she needs stuff done, like, for her, if it's just lingering there, she can't not think about it. And so there's kind of this challenge of like, how do we meet in the middle? And, it's not just me saying like, I'm going to procrastinate and like, you have to handle it. Because one of the things that comes up is that I won't do it immediately. I go and do other stuff for part of my day, and she just does all of it without telling me. So then I come back and it's like, I'd said I was going to do this thing, and now I'm frustrated because I can tell that she's, feels like she's doing more of the housework, and she totally is, like 100%. But I would do more of it if she was able to wait for me. But I understand that she can't, right? Like, we both have these neurodivergent things that push us in opposite directions. So yeah, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on like, how do we meet in the middle? What's the, do I just eat it and like force myself through doing the chores, or, because I think
Kevin
she
has some thoughts.
Yeah, go for it.
I prescribe, I'm going to say 2 seasons of The Odd Couple. Tony Randall, Jack Klugman. They're going to get you through this, kid.
All
they
right.
went through everything you're talking about, man. They just weren't married, but they might as well have been. The Odd Couple is about 2 dudes who love each other but will never fuck. So it can be applied to almost every relationship. See how they did it, because my God, they went for a few seasons. No, that sounds like an absolute nightmare. So wait, she's OCD and you are
ADHD.
ADHD.
So I'll start things, but I forget to finish them, or I half do them, or I don't do them to sort of the most perfect version of it. Like, there's that meme online that calls it, what is it, like inconsiderate fuck up disease, lazy inconsiderate fuck up disease. So, that I think that's a pretty accurate way to describe it. It's not intentional, but it's definitely like I'm not doing things to the full extent that I could be, but I would loop back to do it later. So it's just that sort of like,
yeah, that's the thing I don't bump into, man. Like if you fill the fucking dishwasher and then you don't close it because you're doing a number of other things, but eventually you close it, that ain't a bad thing. However, you're with somebody who's like, I can't do anything until the dishwasher is closed. Like, I'm writing a script if I'm you, man. That's
Kevin, you're saying that for 4 hours you should be tripping over the dishwasher. You're both working from home. He started the dishes. 4 hours later, you're supposed to just be tripping over. Yes?
He what part of he worked on The Mandalorian didn't you fucking understand? Yeah. I'm forgiving everything here, man.
Listen, this podcast is not a diagnostic tool, but Kevin, if you're relating this hard to me and Ben, I feel like you just found out you have ADHD as well.
I think so.
And that, to be honest,
and a tolerant wife.
Right.
Because she doesn't seem to, because that's how these guys, because I have the same issue with Moshe, and that's how these guys know there's even an issue now. Now they have a roommate who's like, what the fuck are you doing? And like Moshe was
a sex roommate to make things worse.
A sex roommate. And it, and to be honest, it does enter the sex realm, because it's like if you're constantly annoyed at someone's housekeeping, your roommate, and they're pissing you off, it's not like it makes you feel hot and attracted to them. So, it's a real issue and something you boys have to face now because your sex roommate is annoyed at it. And what my therapist said is that Moshe has a hard time finishing tasks that don't interest him. But I mean, do you think loading the dishwasher interests me?
But the sex part interests all three of us. We love that task and we would finish that. We love to finish. That's like our favorite part is finishing. No, but okay, to be serious.
Yes.
Okay, it's not, though, that OCD is a reasonable expectation of cleanliness. ADHD is an unreasonable degree of sloppiness. OCD is an unreasonable expectation of cleanliness. Neither of them are operating within the realm of like normalcy. So what you have to do in order to find some purchase between the two of your disorders is you have to find a way to Listen, I know Natasha's rolling her eyes because we still struggle with this every day. So I'm talking from a place of wisdom, but actually we're in the middle of this struggle. But one of the things that we've worked out is I asked her, and this was with therapists and with an ADD coach, I asked her, like, give me a list of things you want me to do. Like, write them down. Write them on a list. And you're not allowed to do those things. And then we do a thing where she has to physically write the note and hand it to me and go through it with me. And then those things are my job. And I think, like, what do you think, Natasha?
Well, you didn't finish them all from yesterday, but you tried.
I did.
And he likes to cross them off. Like, that's for his ADD brain. He feels important with his pen crossing them out, right?
Well, one of the things that people like us need is actually a little bit of positive reinforcement when we do get stuff done.
Not roasting.
But Natasha, that's not your vibe. And we have a different vibe.
I think it's good.
In the aforementioned conversation, when you finish, do you also check that off?
That's right. Well, that's at the end of every list, Kevin.
He gets a blowjob. As soon as he completes the to-do list, he gets a little blowjob.
A little blowjob. That's really what I'm after. But I think finding things like that, Ben, where there are tasks that you go over explicitly that are your job, that she's not allowed to do. And then this is going to be difficult for you, but don't start a bunch of tasks that aren't your job. And then once they are your job, I believe that if you have a list of things to do, you will be able to accomplish them without interruption because they will be listified. And I cannot tell you how helpful that is for me personally.
Can I tell a quick story?
No, honey.
Moshe might want to cut this out, but the other day we had around 45 minutes, and we had to walk the dogs, do ads for our podcast, pack for Rhode Island for us and the kids. And then Moshe started making jam.
Jam?
What kind of jam? That's really important.
Thank you. Great question. Guava jam.
Guava jam. And
great choice.
and he's improvising how he's making this. He's cutting up 24 different guavas. And I'm like, how did you start this project right now? And then he wanted to travel with the jam because we were leaving an Airbnb and going back home. And he wanted to bring hot pots of jam that were half finished with us in the car
to complete the task, Ben. Something that you don't know anything about. Completing the task.
It's so triggering for me, and it's so hard for me to even know where to start talking to him about this because it's not how my mind works in any way. Like I would never have started making jam at that point in the day.
Number one, this sounds like the plot of Paddington in Peru. It's just that adorable. It's so fucking adorable.
Thank you. See how easy it is to see the adorableness if you're not inside of it?
I see you in a floppy hat with your guava jam, puzzled why everyone's so angry at you. My wife says something like Natasha just said, and she says it on the regular, and she just said it yesterday. We were driving home from Home Depot, and I took the path that I always take, the route that I always take. And she does this now more and more often. We've been married 26 years married, 27 years fucking, the more important number. So we know each other very, very well.
Beautiful.
But she goes, oh, I would never take this way. She's going, but that's you all over. You always take the opposite of the way that makes sense to me. And it was such a very specific observation, not so much a complaint, which, my brain wanted to hear as a complaint. Well, fuck you, you drive. But really, it was just somebody making the observation like, it's so weird you chose this. I would have done something completely different. And in moments like that, I get defensive. And then I just kind of settle back where I'm like, she didn't really say anything all that judgmental. She's just saying the obvious to her, which is like, oh, I would do this differently. But then I also think, yeah, but the way I do things differently is like how we got here, how I pay our bills, how it's okay that we're two different people. That's something I say quite a bit in our relationship where I'm like, it's fucking fine that we bicker when we do, because we're two fucking people like trapped in a fucking marriage that like monogamy is a thing that we invented. Our species isn't meant to be fucking lifelong paired up, and we're not octopi or shit like that. So from time to time, it makes fucking utter sense that it's like you and I are two completely different people. Like there's a reason I like you in the first place. You're not me. So being that you do things differently than me, I don't bump into that. Even when it's like something
Kevin,
that irritates me. Go ahead.
No offense, but you sound non-neurodivergent. I don't think Kevin, because here's the problem. When someone
first of all, no offense. No offense.
No, I mean,
but it sounds like your mind is no. I disagree.
I was trying to parse that, going like, "Thank you."
Well, no, I'm just saying.
He's been in a mental institution. No, he's not non-neurodivergent.
But he's trying to relate to Moshe.
You could have saved me $40,000 telling me that 2.5 fucking years ago, Natasha. Why didn't you say that on the Chasing Amy set from the background when I was giving you water? You could have been like, "You're not neurodivergent."
That is how you make it in Hollywood. If you're an extra, scream out just some psychological diagnoses to the director, you're going to make it.
This is what happens. This is what happens. The director will do this. I'm sorry. Who are you?
Bring her to the front. Do you act?
No, the problem with the ADHD is like Ben and Moshe, the baseline of it. My baseline of what's acceptable is crossed on a daily basis. And when your baseline is crossed, it's like you start to freeze up a little bit. And it's like so one thing I would suggest, Ben, is what's helped me is actually learning about ADD and ADHD and listening to podcasts about it. Because like I'm still learning things. Like I've just now recently this year realized that one of the things that I struggled with was the mess was more obvious, but the ADHD scheduling thing. like the jam, like it made sense in his brain. And, I feel like I've just been such a tolerant woman my whole life. I never really questioned it, but now I'm like, oh, this is part of it too. So I can kind of approach it. I don't know, just even uncovering that has helped me.
Well, not to get into a fight on the podcast, Natasha, but something that happens when partners are in a relationship or one has ADHD and the other one doesn't. Now, Ben's already said that his partner has OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, which means that that person does not have a normal emotional reaction to clutter and mess. It is an abnormal, just as abnormal as ADHD is an abnormal reaction to being able to complete a task. The person on the other end of this conflict has an issue with a normal reaction to it. I know that you've said you've been a tolerant woman for so long.
Now I'm out of estrogen.
That is intriguing to me as I have not witnessed it. But the problem is that both people have to...
That's not true that you haven't witnessed it.
Now, the problem is that both people in the relationship, which is kind of what Kevin was saying, both people in the relationship have to have a way to negotiate the parts of their partner, which probably drew them to each other in the first place, that have come to become intolerable to one another over the course of many years, a way to communicate openly about how to get past it. It's not being grumpy. It's not scolding. I believe, it's finding ways to work through this stuff, like lists, like walk and talk, a task, and like Kevin said, finding a way to not get so defensive, which is what I struggle with greatly. I get incredibly defensive when I am criticized for the way that my mind works. But I think it is important to remember that you went to your partner. Our therapist once said, people don't just go to people that are their opposite by accident. They go to people that are their opposite because the opposites fill in the parts of your own personality that you have a weakness on. So the parts that you don't have, I have. And the parts that I don't have, you have. And that's a partnership. And sometimes they become intolerable, and you have to find techniques and strategies to work through that intolerableness.
I wasn't saying it was intolerable. I just said sometimes like the baseline for even, a mess thing. But like you find, like I got a shoe rack. And now when I see your shoes, I put them on the shoe rack and I don't care. And I know it's going to take me 3 days to finally, of steaming for like reminding you, like, why are there 6 pairs of shoes? I've counted them, 6 total in the house. It's like now I have this little rack and I do the shoes. And then I also have noticed that like throughout the years, Moshe's an amazing cook. And like, I'm trying to put him in charge of that. He's completely in charge of the garbage. He's completely in charge of cooking. I tried to make him completely in charge of packing our kids' lunch. Like maybe go to your wife and say, what are some things that I could do, that could be my chores that I could just, and maybe you'll feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yep. I just have one question. Who put the fucking shoe rack together? Who built the shoe rack? Tell these men who built the shoe rack. Was it you?
You built the shoe rack.
I built the fucking shoe rack. I built the fucking shoe rack. And I finished it. I started it and I finished it.
I know. And you were so proud. And I was confused because I looked at it and I just didn't like how it looked because I had ordered it.
She bought the shoe rack.
I know. But like, I hate shoe racks because I always thought of them like as like depressing. Like you walk into a house and it's like a million pairs of shoes. But you know what? I've decided to live with a six-tiered shoe rack. And now I don't even have to see the shoes.
Well, I feel like we're probably boring Ben and Kevin with our domestic disputes, but
I'll be honest with you.
Any last words?
The shoe rack talk is good, but can we go back to where you guys are finishing all over each other and stuff? That was hot. The minute I finished building the shoe rack, I finished all over it. It's a way of saying this is mine. I did this. You marked it.
That's right.
Oh, that's hot.
Ben, I hope that was helpful.
How many kids you guys got? Just out of curiosity.
Just one.
One.
Just the one.
I like to make it sound like there's many.
Ben, do you have kids?
Yeah, you really did for a minute there. I was like,
not.
oh my God, how many kids I got?
Ben, we would suggest having a kid. One thing we have noticed is that when you have these kinds of issues, if you bring a kid into the mix, they go away. The conflict immediately evaporates.
Mm-hmm. That's what I hear. Yeah, thank you. It's the best advice we've gotten.
So Ben, do you feel like there's anything here that...
Oh, totally.
Okay.
No, I really like the idea of like the dedicated chore list. I think that's a really good one. And Natasha, what you were saying about, you helped me realize, like my wife has done something similar to what you did, right? Like she's read books on ADHD. She's tried to learn more about it. I honestly haven't put the time into learning more about hers. So I think that that's a good thing for me to go out and get some books on what she's dealing with so I can understand how she's thinking, because she's definitely met me halfway in trying to understand my neurodivergence. So I'll do the inverse.
And I have and you should learn about ADHD. Like, I made Moshe listen to this podcast and I passed it around to friends, and I'll post it in the chat or in our Endless Honeymoon thing, all about living with people with ADHD. And I'm just saying, Moshe, it affects a lot of different areas of your life.
It was funny because I remember that podcast, and it is very clearly demarcated into two sections. The consequences of living with an ADHD person and what they need to do to take responsibility for that, and the patience and tolerance and the sometimes, let's even say, bitchiness of the person on the other side of the relationship. And Natasha only heard half the podcast. She's like, see, you really have to kind of pick up your side of you gotta start cleaning up after yourself and doing all this. And I was like, but what about the part where you're over here? What about the second half? You remember that?
Well, I thought that it was enlightening, but I would re-listen to it, I guess, and I'll post it. And I think there's other ones too.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
And learning about the OCD, yes. And
knowledge is power, as they say. Kevin, any parting words?
I think Jam Master K said it best. That'd be you.
What did he say?
Jam Master K?
Is that me or Moshe?
Yeah, who's
You're the Jam Master.
Oh, the Jam Master. Oh, that's right.
Guava jam.
Oh, yeah, because that's right.
I mean, the jam's amazing. It's
the jam's
magical.
Good. It's in the fridge now.
Delicious. We gave it to like 5 people. It was a beautiful thought, and I am glad that I live with a man who this old man across the way is out at night picking all his guavas and gave them to us, and that Moshe was able to make this beautiful thing out of
Kevin,
it.
actually, there's a deep wisdom in what you're saying. Paddington, the whole Paddington series is literally about living with a ADHD roommate and loving that person nonetheless.
No, but I'm saying I'd rather a man make jam than not. And honestly, if he cleaned up after himself, I would probably be suspicious if he was also making jam and cleaning up after himself and like having it all. So
that's my jam. That's my jam. Ben, we hope we've helped. Good luck to you. See you later.
Bye. Kevin, you had really good advice. Did you give advice on your podcast?
I want to point out for the record that Ben thought you both gave good advice and never said shit about my advice.
That's because you don't have ADHD and your wife doesn't have it that bad.
He's got 42 Bullwinkle stuffed animals. Of course he's got ADHD. What are you kidding?
All I know is I got good advice to give, but Ben, I lost him with the jam stuff. He was like, this is a serious fucking problem here.
But by the way, Kevin, my first writing job, I was like the senior writer on the staff. I came into his office and he had nothing in it. Zero, not one decoration. I go, what's up with your office? It's creepy in here. He goes, well, years ago, my first writing job, the like second in command writer, he had his whole office completely decorated, and he had a Bullwinkle cutout, like a 9-foot Bullwinkle cutout, and he got fired. And I will never get the image of him like sadly walking his 9-foot Bullwinkle cutout like to the elevator and down the elevator to stuff it in his car to drive away. He's like, ever since then, I was like, I'm not putting anything on my walls.
That's a pretty Spartan way to live, man. Where it's just like, I'm just gonna have to take it down when they fire me.
This was so awesome. You were so awesome.
Yes, Kevin.
Oh,
thank you.
Times. You guys are fucking great, man. Like, I can see why the honeymoon is endless, kids.
That's right. How can people find you and find Dogma and watch Dogma
and
whatever?
Go see him with
and
Dogma?
Go see you live. Yeah.
They could go see Dogma. Let me see. I'm done with the tour. I go Burbank on May 30th is the official end of the tour. It's 20 cities we did. And it comes out June 5th, like everywhere. You can go see it in the movie theater near you. It's on like 2,000 screens. And then me and Jason Mewes are heading out into the world in the middle of June for the Oral Sex Tour, AURALSECTS. And where else am I going to be? I think that's.
And is that a comedy? Is the oral?
I do.
Is the Oral Sex Tour?
Kid.
Oh, really?
Can I plug that?
Yeah, plug away.
I do.
Your podcast is called
Beardless Dickless Me. It's over at iHeart. That's my wife. It's called my kid forever. She's like a beardless, dickless you. So,
so find Kevin Smith. Go see Dogma 25th anniversary re-release of Dogma. I really still remember seeing Dogma in theaters and I was young and being like titillated and shocked by the irreverence of it and the sacrilegiousness of it. And we rewatched it last night.
Did it make you finish in the theater?
Yeah, and that was when I went to the mental institution for the first time. It was straight out of there.
They were like, we caught this guy jerking off in a quasi-religious movie. We really should put him away.
It's a great film, and it's coming back out the 25th anniversary. Dogma. Go see Kevin Smith and Jay on the Oral Sex Tour and see Beardless Dickless Me. Listen to it on iHeart. Kevin Smith.
We love you, Kevin.
Next movie, Natasha, I'm pulling you for wherever we are. If we're shooting in Alabama, you're getting an invite. You got to fucking come.
Okay. All right. I'll do it.
From background to foreground in 28 years.
I love it.
It's a pleasure having you on. That was so fun.
Such a pleasure, kids.
Thank you, Kevin.
Keep finishing on each other as hard as you do. It's beautiful.
We will. And when we finally feel like we've arrived, we'll come to your place and we'll finish all over you.
Thank you. I'm a total cuck, so I'm happy to watch.
Actually, Bullwinkle, Rocky's in the fucking cuck chair.
That's true.
Now that's a cuck chair. All right,
a cuck chair.
Kevin, thanks again. You were awesome.
Bye, kids.